Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pachy Dad Chat. Last week's show, I was told, was a little dry, a little dull. And in other words, because Pachy Mom calls it the way she sees it, it wasn't exactly maybe my best foot forward. So she suggested to me a few changes to the show. You know how that goes. What Pachy Mom wants, Pachy Mom gets. So we're going to start out with just talking about some current events, and I'll give my opinions, and if you don't like it, you're welcome to comment in the live stream chat, and we can talk about it. Maybe you think I'm right on. I don't know, but somebody's got to say this. We're going to start out with Facebook, or Fakebook, whichever you want to call it. Now, the big news from Facebook was they found 30 whole pages dedicated to disrupting the election by the Russians. 30 pages. My God, that's incredible. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that Facebook has billions of pages and billions of users, and they found 30. So, congratulations to Facebook for just ridding the whole world of this horrific thing of fake pages on Facebook. Can you imagine that? Fake pages? I can't even believe that. You know, and obviously they were traced back to the Russians because there are no Russians that are good at hiding their identity or anything like that. So obviously when they sign on, apparently according to Facebook, they're so incredibly stupid that you can just trace them right away, and they got rid of them. Now, I've been on Facebook quite a bit, and to me, there's a lot of other pages that are fake. And as far as trying to disrupt or change the outcome of the election, pretty much any political page on Facebook, their goal is to change the face of the election. If you're the Republican Party, you want to change the face of the election so that the Republicans win. If you're the Democratic Party, you want to change the face of the election so the Democrats win. So this total shock and outrage by the United States senators that there was a couple pages on there that were tied to the Russians. Get a grip, folks. This is going to happen. That's what happens when you open up social media and you have no parameters. It's called free speech. And just because they're Russians doesn't mean that they don't get free speech. Because when we're in America, we have free speech. So, Facebook, get a grip. I think the only reason they came up with these 30 fake pages is to try and satisfy the senators because they don't want to be called back in and be grilled by the Senate and the Congress again for another 8 hours. Although I will have to give Mark Zuckerberg an incredible lot of credit because he made those senators look so foolish because he'd start talking. You could just see their eyes glazing over. They had no clue what he was talking about. But they were certain they got to Mark Zuckerberg and he was going to make changes. So it's safe to go on Facebook now because Facebook took care of those 30 fake Russian pages. So thank God, apparently, according to Facebook, our elections will be smooth as silk without any outside disruption. So that's my little take on Facebook. Interesting story that's local to us. Pachy Dad Chat comes to you from Virginia, and the University of Virginia appointed a former Trump official, Mark Short. Now, the interesting thing is most of us believe that universities, especially state universities, are supposed to be diverse and allow for all kinds of different opinions and different viewpoints, and we all should be open and accepting. Now, I'm not going to start breaking out and singing Kumbaya, but that's pretty much what they want you to believe. Except one of the comments was, how could they do it? Well, first of all, one has nothing to do with the other. And to try and pull out that chestnut and make everybody feel guilty was just stupid. And the professors who resigned stated that they were resigning because the appointment of Mark Short was contrary to the message of the Miller Center values. That's where they work, is in the Miller Center. The Miller Center values include nonpartisan, I guess except if it's Trump, and transparency, except if it's the Obama administration, openness, and a passion for the truth. Now, apparently they were afraid of actually getting the truth from somebody that was in the Trump administration. So it was just easier for them to be crybabies and resign and, try to hold themselves up to some interesting standards. Now, when we think of corrupt administrations, one of the corrupt administrations that comes to mind is the Clinton administration, which, as you know, you got the Rose Law Firm, the whole Travelgate thing, Whitewater, the stay and dress, pick what you want. The person who appointed Mark Short for the University of Virginia was a former Clinton official. So if the professors were really worried about transparency and openness and honesty, I would have thought they would have picked on either the chancellor or the president, who was the one who appointed Mark Short, instead of picking on Mark Short. But as we know, most of these universities are not open and accepting to differing opinions from themselves because they're so intelligent, they know everything. And if you're not a liberal, you're not welcome. So I hope Mark Short sticks with it. I think these two professors felt that they were going to resign, and the whole university was going to fall apart, and the chancellor or the president was going to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I offended you. Here, let me fire Mark Shorten. Please stay on. We can't live without you." Well, hate to say it, guys, everybody's replaceable, including Pachy Dad. So the next topic is the CNN's version of the Miller probe. I did some research on that, and their feeling, now I thought this was hilarious, is it's not a witch hunt, and it's not that there's nothing there, and it's not that there's no collusion that's being found. They're saying the publicity machine from Trump and the conservatives are what's driving that opinion for everybody, and that's why people are beginning to think there's nothing to the Miller investigation. So it's not that there's nothing there, it's just that Trump has done such an incredibly great job of getting the nothing there, witch hunt, those type of narratives out there, that poor Robert Miller, he's just facing it from every direction. And, he's such a upright, standing guy that, he won't fire back. So those poor people on the Miller investigation, they're just being picked on. And it's coming at him from every side, and it's just, such a horrible thing. And, it's just not done that way in government. And I don't know how those horrible Trump officials could keep besmirching somebody with the integrity of Robert Miller. That's pretty much what CNN's take is on the Robert Miller investigation. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Manafort witch hunt in just a little bit, but I thought that was interesting that CNN felt that that's the way it is, and that the Trump officials will say anything or do anything in order to keep that narrative alive, that there's nothing there, it's just a witch hunt, and Miller's just wasting time and money. So oftentimes when I'm looking at news items, I like to go on CNN, or I like to go on MSNBC or some of the other liberal sites, because the same story has such a different spin. You wonder if you're still in the same country. Now, another person that has come into the limelight lately is Sacha Baron Cohen, and she is a comedian that's been on a show, and she apparently makes these veiled references to different things about the Trump administration. Now, this is a quote from CNN. "Comedians at their best expose the truth while making us laugh." Now, think about that. Comedians expose the truth. I don't know about you, but I've heard very few comedians that actually expose the truth. And especially since Trump has gotten into office, the lies flow out of their mouth like water. And you look at the late night supposed talk shows where you've got the people making their opening monologues. It's no longer anything funny. It's just how much can we bash Trump, bash the Trump administration, bash any conservatives, bash any conservative candidates. It's no longer funny, and it no longer is the truth. But in CNN's eyes, these people are just champions again. It's interesting how, as long as people are on their side, they're willing to praise them. But you don't really hear them bringing up any examples of conservative comedians that are speaking the truth. They just kind of go with their side and how they feel, and those are the only people that are telling the truth. Okay, my next little story, and this one I kind of enjoy a little bit. The Koch network, as they call it. When I first saw that, now I know who the Koch brothers are, and one of the Koch brothers, as we know, passed away recently. And the Koch brothers' big thing was that they funded the beginning of Americans for Prosperity. And I think we all know the impact that they've had in some of the elections. And, some of the impact was good and some of the impact was bad. One of the things they did is they put $400 million towards Mitt Romney's campaign against Barack Obama. Now, how they saw Mitt Romney as a conservative, I'm not sure. But, the mainstream media was so quick to jump to the Koch brothers and feature them and talk about how this was such a interesting thing because the Koch brothers have decided that they aren't going to support Trump. Well, it's not a big surprise because they didn't support him in 2016. However, they decided because they aren't getting enough publicity, and let's face it, really don't hear anything about AFP anymore. I guess they decided they're going to go to the dark side. So they have put it out there that there could be times when they're not necessarily going to support a Republican candidate in a race, but they are willing to support Democrats in certain races. Now, here's where I just can't wrap my head around this thing. Excuse me. I apologize for that, folks. I've got a cold, but, the show must go on. And I don't have one of those fancy cough buttons like Sean Hannity does, so I just have to, pause and mute and cough and then come back to it. So anyhow, like I said, I'm having a little trouble wrapping my head around how a organization that their founding principles were they were going to be conservatives and for smaller government and things like that. And in fact, they were big supporters of the Tea Party when the Tea Party first started. A lot of the Tea Party events would not have happened without Americans for Prosperity. But I'm still trying to wrap my head around how do you support a Democrat as a conservative? I just don't know. Now, just so you know, we're in the middle of a big storm, and if we lose power, I think I'll be able to keep broadcasting because I'm on a laptop and the wonderful Yeti mic that we have is plugged into the laptop, so I should be able to keep broadcasting, although I don't know how long. So if you hear the computer starting up in the background, that's Pachy Mom trying to keep up with the YouTube live stream, but because the power went out temporarily and came back on, now her computer has just restarted itself. So let's get back to those wonderful Koch brothers. And the mainstream media just couldn't help but tout how these conservatives really must know something because they're willing to support Democrats in certain elections. I would like somebody to maybe mention the name of somebody who is a Democrat who's conservative. Now, don't do it yet because Pachy Mom's not up on the YouTube live stream yet. She's still logging in. But once she gets back on the YouTube live stream, if you know of any Democrat that's running in for a federal seat that's a conservative, please let me know because I would love to check that out. And if that person is an actual legitimate conservative Democrat, on my next show, I will absolutely put that person out there and say, I was wrong. Here is a Democrat that's running for office that is a true conservative. But like I said, don't really expect to find that. Okay, we are back onto the YouTube live stream again for the chat. So if somebody does know of a Democrat that's a conservative, please let me know, but I'm not expecting a whole lot. So I just thought it was interesting that the Koch brothers, who kind of really came into the limelight by supporting the Tea Party, which was absolutely a conservative movement, has now decided their hatred for Trump is so great.
We donate money to AFP. I did not donate money to them so that they could then turn around and support the enemy.
Right. Oh, I forgot what I was saying. Thanks. So anyhow, they kind of got their start and everything with being conservative. Now, Pachy Mom and myself, we have and had donated to Americans for Prosperity, but we didn't donate to them just so that they could spend money helping Democrats get elected, just so that they could take out their hatred of Trump. And we're not the only ones that feel that, because they did interview a person who had donated over $1 million to Americans for Prosperity previously, and they said they were no longer going to support Americans for Prosperity because they've taken that position. So if in your community, in your town, in your state, if Americans for Prosperity is big and they're doing a lot of things, call them out on it. The only way that things are going to change is if somebody stands up and says to these people, you told me you were conservative and now you're supporting Democrats. You're nothing but a rhino. So I think we all need to be aware of that, and I wanted to specifically mention that because I thought it was important. And now on to the next topic. There's been a lot of discussion as to whether Judge Kavanaugh will make it through the Senate confirmation hearing and get voted to be one of our Supreme Court justices. I believe he will. I think one of the things that has really helped is Rand Paul has come out and said that he will support and he will vote for Judge Kavanaugh to be a Supreme Court judge, and that does carry a lot of weight with a lot of people. Rand Paul is very conservative and almost bordering on a libertarian, not quite as much as his father, but his opinion does carry a lot of weight with a lot of conservatives. And he said after meeting with Judge Kavanaugh and reviewing his record, he felt confident that he could support him for that. And that pretty much, it wasn't necessarily that Rand Paul's vote was needed so much as Rand Paul's support was needed. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and kudos to Rand Paul for not listening to what everybody else is saying and making his own decision, which he often does, sometimes to the good, sometimes to the part that frustrates everybody. Now, let's go back to another local Virginia story. I love this story. Love, love, love this story. Most of Virginia and parts of West Virginia get their power, their electricity, from Appalachian Electric Power. Pachy Mom and I, that's what powers the show here, is power from Appalachian Electric Power. They announced that due to the corporate tax cuts that President Trump put in place, they are going to cut their rates 6%. Now, a lot of people say, 6%, that's nothing. And if you listen to the Maxine Waters or Nancy Pelosi's of the world, that's nothing. That's not even anything that's worth considering. Well, I did a little math based on what we spent for power last year. This cut is going to save us about $250. Now, you maybe think that that isn't a great deal, but hey, $250 buys a lot of different things. So, and that's just us. This is across the entire state of Virginia for anybody that gets their power from Appalachian Power. So, as much as we're a blue state, and Senator Timmy Kaine and Senator Markey Warner like to bash Trump, gee, here's something Trump did that benefited all their constituents. So suck it up, Timmy and Mark. You're going to have to bite the bullet and admit this was a good one because it's saving everybody money, not just the rich, but the poor also. But we won't hear anything from them about that because they will hide their head and change the subject or come out with something else that will be horrible about Trump instead of admitting, yes, Virginia did get a break because of the corporate tax cuts. And speaking of Senator Mark Warner, him and his powerful committee investigating the Russian collusion, or not, I'm sorry, not the Russian collusion, the Russian effects on the election. Sorry about that. Another cough. They have found, now get this is pretty amazing. They're saying that Russia could still be effective in dividing the United States as far as election goes. Now, this is, a big Senate committee. They're doing all kinds of investigating, and they came up with this all on their own. Aren't you proud of Markey Warner, our senator from Virginia, that they could actually figure out that the Russians might be doing something to divide America on the election? Takes a real rocket scientist to come up with that one. So, Markey, my hat's off to you. What an amazing find and what an amazing thing to broadcast, because none of us actually knew that. So, hats off to you. Sometimes my sarcasm is not always readily apparent. Folks, that was sarcasm. Okay, now let's get on to poor Mr. Manafort. Interestingly enough, Mr. Manafort somehow got roped into the Russia probe. Now, for those of you that have strong opinions about the Russia probe, I do also. I think it should have been ended a long time ago, but it drags on and on and on. And now they have gotten Paul Manafort. And they are putting him on trial. And they're putting him on trial for tax evasion for, I believe, either 2005 or 2006. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think our criminal justice system is set up so that if I'm looking for somebody that perhaps did wrongdoing, I can drag in an associate of theirs and I can start grilling them for a crime that they may or may not have committed 11 years ago, in hopes that I can make that person, Paul Manafort, say or create something that the government can use against another person. Obviously, that person being Trump. So what they want to do is they want to put enough pressure on Paul Manafort that he will say whatever the government wants against Trump in order to escape charges. Is this really our justice system? Is this what a congressional probe has gotten into, where we can go so far sideways that we're taking other people, and I'm not saying he's innocent or guilty, but we can take other people and we can put tremendous pressure on them so they will say anything to get out of it, just so we can go back and get the intended target that apparently we have nothing on at this point. That's not justice, folks. This whole thing has become such a sideshow that it just needs to end. And I hope that if they do convict Paul Manafort, the first thing President Trump does is pardon him, because the man does not deserve what he is going through right now. Now, on to the next subject. I'd like to express my sympathies to poor Jim Acosta. Imagine having to be at a Trump rally and hearing CNN sucks chanted over and over and over again. The poor guy, I'm surprised he just didn't start crying. It's just so unfair for him to have to listen to CNN sucks, despite the fact that all they do is spend 24 hours a day trying to run down our American president. They diss his accomplishments. Anything that the president does, not only will they not give him credit for, but they belittle it. They say it's not enough. They say it's not effective. It's not going to work. You name it, they've said it. And he's surprised that a room full of Trump supporters think that CNN sucks. Well, Jim, if you're listening, which I doubt you are, because you would never listen to a conservative for this long in any show, CNN sucks. So, now the last little bit that I want to talk about is our good friend, Maxine Waters. Poor Maxine Waters. Those people are just picking on her. She wanted to have a couple of rallies, and she heard that some ultra-right-wing groups were going to protest, and she just had to cancel them because she fears for her safety. Can you imagine that? The poor Maxine Waters. I can't believe that everybody is picking on her and that she feels unsafe. Now, this is the same Maxine Waters that belongs to the Congressional Black Caucus that pretty much does nothing for the black community, although they like to make you think that they do. She's also the same Maxine Waters that said, if you see somebody from the Trump administration, go after them. If you see them at a gas station, if you see them, and if you see a Trump supporter, basically surround them, tell them that they're horrible, do everything you can to make their life as miserable as possible. Well, Maxine, I hate to tell you, but sometimes what goes around comes around. So, Maxine, while I don't want to see you hurt at all, I don't want even one little hair from your head to be pulled out. Maybe now you understand what you did with the words that you spoke. And as far as impeach 45, good luck with that one, Maxine, because it's not going to happen. So, in wrapping up the show, is there anybody that has any comments that I can express or that I can expound upon? Either I did a really good job or you guys just were so bored that you fell asleep. Either way, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. This show for me was a lot easier to do because I could just do my commentary and report a few things. If you like the show, great. If you have an idea for the show, let us know. You can go into the Discord room and tell Pachy Mom, hey, I think Pachy Dad should talk about NASCAR, should talk about basket weaving or whatever, and she'll pass it on to me, and I'll either bust out laughing and say no way, or I'll do some research and I'll start talking about it. Either way, I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank Pachy Mom again for allowing me time on her live stream. And this is Pachy Dad, and I tell it like it is.